Hi, everybody. My name is Suzanne. I'm a compulsive overeater. Hello. I weigh and measure 3 meals a day from the Cambridge Gray Sheet, commit them to my sponsor, don't eat in between no matter what, and abstinence gives me my life. My abstinence date is February 3rd, 2008. Sometimes I think about the contrast between both my life and the lives of other people who have hobbies, make decisions, have preferences, can concentrate when they go to an event. And I think about what it was like when I was eating. I remember going to an opera performance once and I had binged all afternoon. Um, this is TMI, but I was observing um, the customs of my religion, and I wasn't traveling on the Sabbath. So I went to a bar mitzvah and I stayed in the synagogue until after dark when my friend picked me up and took me to an opera. And I ate all afternoon. And the worst thing was, I ate frozen items, baked goods that aren't supposed to be eaten frozen, but they were frozen, they were still frozen. And then by the time I was totally sickeningly full, some of it had defrosted so it could be palatable. It could actually taste good. But by then I was too full. And I remember going to that opera performance and not being able to sit. Like I couldn't bear sitting because I was just too full. And I was in the worst torment. That was like unusual torment, even though every single day of my binging life, I was too full to taste food, but too full to sit. That was unusual, maybe. I don't even know. Um, it ruled my life, the addiction. I don't believe I was born an addict. I believe I was made into an addict by impossible circumstances. And eventually, when I was about 14, I started using food. And when I was 16, I plunged headfirst into the big quantities and into the baked goods, which I hadn't plunged into. Because I like to say this, like I wasn't crazy. So I didn't want to be fat. So I'm not going to eat large quantities of sugar stuff. That's crazy. You'll get fat. Why would you do that? And then by the time I was 16, I was fully crazy and just didn't stop, couldn't stop. Honestly, the worst thing was that I didn't have choice about eating food I liked. If what I wanted was 2 blocks away, but between here and there was any food to be bought or found, I had to eat that food. And then by the time I got 2 blocks away, or, here's the example, by the time the X is defrosted, there's no room. So I begged God, please just let me clear out long enough to have room to enjoy food. I just want to taste food again. Um, and occasionally I would get relief. I'd go on some kind of a diet. I went on Weight Watchers a few times, and the first 2 weeks or 1 week would be heaven, and I would know that my life is now going to begin. There were a lot of doors that were closed to me because of the effects of compulsive overeating. Um, some obvious doors. Being on stage, there was usually only one fat girl part. So if I didn't get the fat girl part, no part. And dating boys, uh, you know, not old, strange men who are willing to be with a fat young person because at least she's young. Um, and I was sure that if I could ever be normal weight, all my problems would be over. Hmm. Um, and then I found out I was an adult child. Yay! Uh, and that there was a lot of healing that I needed. And I've been working pretty hard for the 40 years I've been in program. I came into Gray Sheet 29 years ago. First 11 years I was in regular OA, and at year 5 I went to a rehab and a halfway house and began weighing and measuring my food without exception, but from a different food plan, and would, had some years and years and break. And anyway, when I came to the Gray Sheet community, I was very relieved to find out that it wasn't the cult that I had just come from. I'd been in a cult where they didn't allow you to go to therapy, take medication, go to other fellowships. And I was so desperate not to eat again, and I didn't think there was anywhere else to go. Eventually, I ran out of food recovery programs that I had tried. I'd tried absolutely every other community, How, 90 Day, regular OA, and there was just Gray Sheet left. And I didn't want to come here because there were some foods that are omitted on the Gray Sheet that I was weighing and measuring without any problem on the other food plan, except that I couldn't get back on that other food plan because I didn't have a community anymore. I'd left the cult. And I thought I could do it by going to AA meetings and just keeping to the food plan I had had before. But I was in a relapse for 14 months. I had 2 consecutive days of abstinence in the 14 months. I didn't eat any vegetables in 14 months except for those 2 days. And eventually, I really, I really believe that my higher power brought so much intervention into my life. I was meeting GreySheeters in another fellowship, and they like laughed heartily, belly laughs, and they smiled. They were getting married. They seemed like just like juicy people, and their eyes sparkled. And nobody's eyes sparkled in the cult. If your eyes sparkled, they got rid of that sparkle quick. But one day, a Gray Sheeter who I knew from another fellowship, those of us who know Cambridge, we know 11 Garden Street, and there were a bunch of meetings of different fellowships there on Saturdays. And I was at an earlier AA meeting upstairs where we used to have the Friday meeting, Gray Sheeters, where I met some of us in the Friday meeting. And this person I knew from the other fellowship was downstairs and about to go to the big room. And she said, I am celebrating 12 years of abstinence today. You want to hear me? And I thought I would support her. So I went in, and I also knew I was dying, but I didn't really have any intention to join Gray Sheet. And I went in there, and I saw all these like juicy people who, had personalities. And after that meeting, I asked somebody very timidly, are you allowed to go to therapy? And she said, oh my God, we're all in therapy. Oh no, I think I said, are you allowed to take medication? She said, yeah, we're all on medication. Um, I feel like sharing another anecdote from before I came to Gray Sheet. In the 14-month relapse before I came to Gray Sheet, there were many notable things that occurred during, a very, very dark 14 months. And I contacted the only people left in my life. I'd just contact them and say, can I have lunch with you? And I'd like have one lunch with them, one meeting. and that would be that for that. And this same person who was celebrating 12 years that day, this is before that particular day, 10 minutes. Thanks, Carla. Um, we made a lunch date, and I watched her lovingly take out this beautiful work of art lunch and eat it spoonful by spoonful. And she knew that I had been in a different food community, and I was comfortable in it before I mean, I was dying spiritually, but I was very thin and abstinent for a long period of time. But now I was in relapse. And she looked at me like with laser beam eyes and she said, "How's the food?" And I said, "I'm dying." And she said, "Come to Gray Sheet." And I said, "But what if it's unhealthy?" She said, "Then leave. You can leave." And I never forgot that, but it still took about a year for me to come in. A lot of stories about that time. And this has turned out to be the safest place for me to recover from the food. I always tell my sponsees that when I become president of the universe, I'm going to change the Gray Sheet, but nobody has elected me yet. Like I'll add certain foods. But I get what I need. I'm healthy. I love my food. And it gets more interesting to me. And in a couple of minutes, I want to talk a little more about the emotional and spiritual. And I'll just say weight-wise, my top weight was 50 pounds heavier, but I was throwing up so I could constantly be full, and I hemorrhaged my vocal cords twice. I've had 2 surgeries, so I had a low bottom at that weight of about 185. And spiritually and emotionally, when I don't eat over a problem, I have a shot at learning how to handle it better someday. And I have a shot at having to ask for help. Because as long as the food is there as my solution, I don't ask for help. I don't talk to other people. I'm even in another fellowship where I must make a certain number of calls every day. I don't always make my quota, but it forces me to get out of isolation, which is fantastic. I wanted the formula. I wanted not to have to feel pain, never to be in an unhealthy situation again. I wanted the guarantee and the formula. I don't have a formula, but one guarantee I've been given is that there's help here to help me not eat compulsively over things I can't control. And then in my experience, I've like been learning stuff and I have experienced a fair number of things where I was hopeless, clueless, and I stuck around and a solution appeared. And I was available to grab the solution. And I'll end with this. I always recognized that even in my darkest days, good things would flow along the river. Not in some dark days, there was a long wait between good things, but things would flow. But like I had catcher's mitts on my hands and I couldn't grab them from the river. But if I'm abstinent, then I have an opportunity to take advantage of good things that come across my radar. And and I have a chance also to improve situations that aren't good. Where I've made a mistake, I have opportunities, if it's a healthy situation, to improve things. And anyway, I didn't know what I would say tonight. I'm very happy to be here. I wish for everybody to be your own best friend, stay on your own side, recover from your childhood trauma, do everything you can, take advantage of all the wonderful resources we have. And when all fails, when it's hard figuring out how to live life, making an amazing gray sheet meal is a terrific tool, I find. Like a meal that just, like, I literally groan with joy when I eat certain things. So, thank you for listening.